before she begins, I just want to let you all know that there has been a proposal for us to extend the use or lose, and we're going to keep an eye on that because currently right now you are expected to submit your use or lose request by November 21st, and you have to take them by January the 2nd. And I want to make sure that you all don't miss that deadline because you do not want to lose your valuable leave. And without further ado, we're going to welcome Janice. For those of you that know, Janice is our field rep, and Janice is going to be going over some proposed executive orders with us today.
Well, actually, the executive orders are not proposed. They are in effect. And it's really bad news for us. Basically, what happened was back in 2018, the president signed these executive orders, and NTEU and some of the other federal unions filed suit to prohibit them from being implemented. And so we got an injunction that lasted for about a year. And then the courts came back and basically decided that they did not have jurisdiction to rule on the issue, but rather that we would have to, with each contract, challenge the executive orders and the administration's attempt to administer them. And we'll talk about all of that. So I'm gonna start my little slideshow here, and I would ask you if you have any particular questions, just stop me, because it's just a few of us on here. We can be informal, right? So right. Let's just do this thing. Okay, so again, these executive orders, they were signed in 2018, but they were enjoined but allowed to take effect in 2019. Which worked out well for the IRS because we did get a new agreement signed, a midterm agreement signed in 2019 or for 2019 in 2018. The problem is it's time for us to be bargaining your new contract. And as you'll see as we go through these executive orders, if they're allowed to take place, they're allowed to take effect, if these govern the bargaining of your new contract, the contract will basically be gutted. So fingers crossed that either, that people will change their minds about implementing this thing, because it's a nightmare. Okay, so this slide explains what an executive order is. You guys have worked for the federal government, most of you, for a while, so I don't have to explain that. But I will say that basically the executive order is a way for the president, and a lot of presidents use them when they can't get legislation passed, right? So they'll just write an executive order in order to implement whatever their policy is. It's really precarious for us, though, because with the executive order, and you guys being an administrative agency, the president is the administrator, and he has a lot of authority to dictate terms and conditions. So it is what it is. Okay, so what happened? On Friday, May 25th, the administration released 3 executive orders that basically attacked collective bargaining, official time, and employee due process rights. The orders directed the agencies to implement them immediately. As I said, there have been some delays, but with things being as they are, we are now bargaining under these. And I will tell you that, for an example, the Department of Health and Human Services, which is one of the agencies that we represent, their contract negotiations were a disaster. We've got agencies that have lost union space. We have serious pullbacks on telework, which is very ironic because now everybody's being forced to telework, but HHS was down to 1 day of telework. So, I mean, some really crazy stuff was happening. All right, so let's talk about the first one. And this is not going to mean a lot to you if you're not a steward or if you've never had time to, had an occasion to meet with the steward. But what you should know is that when you have a problem and you want to go to the union, that you have the right to do that on official time. Well, that steward is also on official time, meaning that they are getting their regular pay and benefits to represent employees. Now, this has been a part of the law for years. And basically, I think the recognition is that it's a benefit to the agency to have a good labor and management relationships. And so for that reason, and also that employees have certain rights, and in order to pursue those rights, they need assistance. So, but that is being eaten away at. So for example, let's look at this first one. Basically what it does is cut official time so that the union would be awarded 1 hour of official time per bargaining unit employee. Yolanda, how many bargaining unit employees are in Mississippi now? How many do you represent?
Oh, we're down to, I want to say around 80. Let me make sure though. I want to say 80.
That's 80 members or 80 bargaining unit employees?
Bargaining unit employees. We're not huge at all.
Okay,
I understand what you're saying as a whole, because we don't have about the 4 or 5 people that's not members, but we're small.
Okay, so let's take 80 hours. Let's say it's 80. That's fine. So if we have an arbitration, let's say somebody wants to challenge their performance appraisal. For that employee by themselves, they get 4 hours to prepare a rebuttal. But imagine that you're the union steward and the person hasn't done a rebuttal. It's going to take you, I would say, you're going to meet with the employee. You're going to have to request the information. You're going to have to prepare a reply for the employee. And that means going through all of their work documents, understanding everything that person has done. It could easily take you 30 hours to do one of those cases. That's from the beginning to the end. And so that's one case for one employee. Okay. And this says official time. This also includes meetings. So if every team had 2 meetings a year, can you see how quickly 80 hours would be gone? And so then what happens when all of that official time is eaten up? If you have a need, what is Yolanda going to meet with you on her personal time? So I mean, it's just it basically what it does is it guts your ability to interact with your union. Employees have to receive written approval before using official time, and failure to get that in writing could be deemed AWOL. Employees can take unpaid leave to perform representational duties. Now remember, good labor management relations are in the interest of the agency, right? If you got a bunch of disgruntled employees, I mean, how many times have you had it where the union got involved in team situations trying to help with things like that? All of that's gone. Or the union stewards would have to do it on their personal time. Let's see here. All time will be, they're already reporting all of that, so that's no problem. But just this severe limit that clearly is not sufficient to meet the needs of a chapter between the meetings, oral replies, and grievances. So it also affects collective bargaining. And this is where it starts to really affect you on a one-to-one basis. Okay, so what we have here is that the administration orders that there be an interagency labor relations working group established. And what this working group would do is develop model language and proposals and standardize the government's position in bargaining. So what that means is you'll have FDA, IRS, the Patent and Trade Office, Customs and Border Protection, a group of people coming together and developing proposals. Now you have entirely different needs at the IRS than they have at HHS or CBP. So number one, the proposals are not really gonna be very flexible, and they're not gonna be effective in terms of meeting your needs. And so basically, once that language is developed, then the administration issues that, and directs the agencies to follow the model language. So it takes away the ability of the agencies to decide, well, our employees need this or our employees need that. No, here's the model language and this is what you will do. And if the union doesn't agree to the model language, then the agencies are directed to impose those proposals. Forget about the fact that there is an impasse procedure established by law. It's just like, hey, agencies, you give it to the union. If they don't accept it, that's tough. New contract. Okay? And further, it directs agencies not to bargain over subjects that allow them, that they have permissive rights to bargain over. So that could be things like, reassignments and stuff like that. So it's tough. It could really have an effect on what your contract language looks like. Due to technical limitations, this video has been split into 3 parts. Please look for part 2 on YouTube.